Today on the channel, we're going to be taking a look at the NECA Toys Sesame Street Ultimate Edition action figure. Specifically, we are looking at Ernie. Of course, this is part of Series 1, which comes with Ernie and Bert. Sadly, I do not yet own Bert, but we're going to be taking a look at Ernie today. This sort of continues the theme we started off with last video, where we took a look at the Palisades Kermit the Frog, which we'll probably bring in for a few comparisons later on. Before we get into the figure, let's take a quick look at this box. Now, this is your standard NECA Ultimate Edition box. It has a collector-friendly window that you could display the figure in if you so wish. Of course, on this channel, I like to unbox the toys, which I've already done, so we can take a look at the box and then at the figure. So you can see there's artwork of Ernie here. It looks very, very nice along the side as well. You can see Sesame Street Presents, Ernie up top. On the back of the box, we do have promo images of the figure itself along with Bert, and pretty much the same thing on this side as the other side. Up top, we have Sesame Street along with a little drawing of Bert and Ernie reading a book that says NECA. Very, very cute. It also says Volume 1 up here. I don't know if this Volume 1 references the set of figures or if Ernie is number 1, Bert's number 2. Not quite sure yet until I have another one to compare. On the inside, again, promo art or promo photos of the figure, as well as awesome artwork of Sesame Street on the inside. Very, very cool. So now we'll take a look at the figure itself. Ernie looks super good, super accurate, and I'd say he looks very proportionate, although I do want to compare him to the unreleased Palisades Ernie figure, which I of course don't own, but I can talk about it quite a bit. So before we get into anything, let's talk about the accessories that Ernie comes with. To start off, he has an alternate head here, which is a more happy expression. This is probably the head I'm going to display him in most often. He also comes with an assortment of hands, so 2 extra sets, as I drop them all over the place. 2 extra sets of hands, very, very nice. We'll probably take a look at those in a little bit as well. He of course comes with Rubber Ducky, probably the must-have accessory. They're the most obvious accessory he was going to come with. He comes with a portrait of Bert and Ernie. Very cool. I believe this is in their bedroom, so very cute accessory. And then he comes with the letter C. I do believe all the Sesame Street figures are going to be coming with some type of letter, and I think the count is going to be coming with numbers, so very, very cool. If we take a closer look at Ernie here, we can see all the different kind of sculpting techniques they use to create a sort of Muppet textured figure. You can see on his, I guess you would call it his skin, right? This orange felt here. You can see that there is a sort of texture applied that really makes it look kind of fuzzy. So instead of it just being a flat sort of smooth plastic, it's more so what you would expect to see on the actual puppet, which I think is really impressive. On the top of his head, he has this sort of rubbery, soft plastic, soft vinyl, whatever you would call it, for his hair. I think you need this especially when it comes to swapping out the heads. I'll show you later on, but you do need to push down pretty tough on his head. So I think this rubber hair is just so you don't break any pieces off. He has this soft plastic shirt or sweater here, which I think is there so you can articulate his body a bit better. Very smart inclusion. You can see the sculpt work on the sort of collar and all the different parts of his sweater here. Looks super, super good. You even see vertical lines, or the stitching in his sweater going vertically here on his sleeves and on the torso of his shirt. One thing to note as we're moving forward, there is a bit of chipping occurring just as I'm operating this figure, I think specifically in the elbow area, so the paint does tend to get rubbed off, which can be a little annoying. You can see, I think right there, yeah, that is a little disappointing to see. Hopefully it's not like this for your guys' copy of the figure, but this appears to be happening at my figure's elbows, so very, very unfortunate. Hopefully I don't see much of that moving forward. Coming down to his legs, again, the jeans are sculpted very nicely and very realistic. You can tell they weren't going for a more cartoonier look to this character. They definitely want him to appear more like a puppet, which I really appreciate. And then coming down to the shoes, they're very nicely sculpted, even though I'd say feet aren't the most important part of these Muppet characters. So it's nice to see that all that extra detail went even into the feet as well. And I think it's a good jumping off point to start talking about the paint. The paint is super nice on this guy in most areas. On the feet specifically, I really love that they went the extra mile to make his shoes look dirty. I mean, it's not like we really see their feet often on the show. At least I don't remember being able to see their feet very often. But I'd imagine walking around Sesame Street, you're in like an urban area, I'm sure your shoes get scuffed up quite a bit. So very nice detail. We'll move our way up the jeans. You can see it's not just a flat blue color. There's also some different shades and highlights inside all the different creases as well. You can see some more darker blues inside these creases. Very, very nice detail. Moving up to the sweater, it's painted very, very meticulously, so all these lines look very, very uniform and perfectly done, so not a whole lot of complaint there. I do find that the orange does bleed a little bit onto the sweater. You'll notice, if the camera can pick it up, the orange is kind of bled a little bit down into the sweater. It's a bit more noticeable in person, I think, but it's definitely something to note that might affect your figure if you pick this up. Up top, of course, looks very, very good. He has this awesome red nose, and his face is painted pretty beautifully. I'll say beautifully because it's just sort of a flat color. Very, very simple, but it looks really good. I just mentioned that the skin was a flat tone, but truthfully, if you take a closer look, it might be hard to pick up on camera, but there is a sort of wash or dry brushing or airbrushing going on in the face, and you can even see it a bit better in the hands. Again, it's kind of hard to see on camera. It might not pick it up perfectly, but in certain areas, there is a brighter tone in there just to give it a little more value, a little more depth. So that much I very, very appreciate from the paint detail of this figure. Articulation, pretty standard articulation, but it's still very good articulation. So the head is on a sort of ball joint, but you can actually get a lot more motion out of it than I was expecting. You can obviously move his head left, right, up and down, but you can even tilt his head down, and you can even push it back further if you want to get it into even more unique poses. So that's always really great. You can tilt the head side to side like this. You aren't just restricted to looking left and right. He can do a lot of different poses with his head, as you can see. So very, very much appreciate that. Great articulation in the head area. I'd say my only big complaint, he can't look too far up and too far down, but truthfully, that's really not a big problem. I think it gets the job done. He has a ball joint in the shoulder. He can lift his arm pretty far out like this, and then you could spin his arm pretty much all the way around. You can get anything you need out of it. Single jointed elbows, surprisingly. I think NECA is starting to go back on their double jointed elbows and starting to use their single jointed again, which I think is fine for this figure. We don't really need Ernie to be in any sort of crazy poses, but you get what you need out of it. And then his wrist can swivel as well as bend up and down like that. Right here in his torso and into his waist, he has a sort of ball joint, so you can get him into a decent range of bending, tilting poses, whatever you need. The legs are pretty well articulated as well. Knees, again, single joint. It's a little stiff, so just be mindful of that. And the shoes, of course, are, again, I believe on a ball joint, but they tend to be a little tougher to move, or maybe not a ball joint, but you can swivel the feet and you can tilt them or rock them back and forth like that. So standing him up should never be an issue, as you can see. So for the accessories, what you're going to want to do, we're going to swap on the alternate head. I'm just going to very firmly grab Ernie's head here and pop it off like that. That can be a little stressful. You do not want to break your figure. Like I said before, Ernie does have more pliable, softer plastic for his hair, so you can definitely push down on it a little bit if you have to. After struggling quite a bit, it is now on, as you can see, and as I said before, I think this is the preferred look for Ernie. He looks very happy, very welcoming, very much reflective of his character. In addition to that, we can swap out the hands. We'll just swap them out one by one here so you can see these are a little easier to replace. Now, this set of hands almost looks like a set of gripping hands, although he doesn't really come with anything to grab, although I have seen people online have him holding different weapons. I'm not going to do that because why would Ernie hold weapons? It's just not accurate. But when you have this figure, you can do whatever you want. So he has these pointer fingers as well if you want him to be pointing at someone or at Bert, whatever you want to do. Very, very cool. I'm just going to put back his default hand here so we can use one of his other accessories, that being Rubber Ducky. Now, I don't think the gripping hands are actually big enough to grab onto the duck, but you can rest the duck in his hand like that, which looks super cool. Let's see if we can make him look at the camera. There we go. Very, very cute. Again, we took a look at this earlier. You can actually hang this up on the wall, your wall, if you want to, or maybe you can just have it stand, or maybe you can get some sort of peg to stand this up next to your figures. I'm probably not hanging that on the wall, but we'll leave Rubber Ducky here in his hand while we move on to a little comparison. So here's Ernie next to Kermit, and as you can see, I think they scale very, very nicely. Oh, if I hadn't mentioned, this is the Palisades Toys Kermit the Frog figure, very, very old figure at this point, while the NECA figures are brand new. So I think they scale great personally. Some people might say that Ernie could be a little bit shorter, which I can definitely see, but otherwise I think it looks very, very good. Now, if you were to go online and look up the old canceled Palisades Sesame Street line, you can take a look and compare Ernie from this line to that line. You will notice that on those older pictures, the proportions are actually quite different, and yes, he is a little bit smaller than the NECA figure. The NECA figure has, I think, more proportionate body parts to, let's say, the character design. I think it follows more of a realistic philosophy when it comes to how the arms and legs should be proportioned to the body. But if you take a look at the Palisades figure, I think the Palisades figure better reflects how maybe a puppet's proportions would look. But what we have here, I think, is super, super good, and I really couldn't ask for anything better. So overall, how would I score this figure here? Well, I would highly recommend it. I think it's a great figure, especially if you are trying to find a nice companion series for your Palisades Muppets, or if you really like Sesame Street. It's a great figure, and we don't really get collectors figures like these ever, so this is an awesome pickup. Now, the issues with the figures would include, or this figure in particular would include, of course, the paint chipping. That is a big problem that you hate to see. Otherwise, little issues such as, it's really all you have to do with paint. The articulation, it's kind of up to you, subjective. I think the articulation is fine. I think it's perfectly gets the job done, but some people are going to be wanting the more better articulation when it comes to the double jointed elbows and knees. Of course, as we said before, this only has the single jointed. So ultimately, I think he's an awesome figure, definitely worth the pickup. I'd say it's more worth the pickup that if in the long run we do get more and more and more of these figures, if this becomes one of NECA's bigger lines, that's going to be super great because it'll, like I said before, go perfectly with the Palisades Muppets line. So highly recommend picking up Ernie. Just be mindful of those little tiny issues, especially when it comes to paint. But as I said before, you're not really getting anything like this from any other company, so I think it's definitely worth the pickup. All right, enjoy your day. Thanks for watching. Subscribe.